So, hi everyone. Today we're here with Pablo Muñoz and Happy, and we're going to speak about Pablo's career and especially his team racing. He's 2 times winner of Marco Rizzotti trophy. So, first of all, how are you, Pablo?
Good. It's good to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation.
So, tell us, what are you doing right now? Where are you?
Right now I'm in Miami, my home, just getting ready for our team racing regatta in New York next week.
And who's the team? Who are you training with?
I'm training with just the rest of Team Happy, and I think we have a pretty good team for the regatta with chances to do good.
Nice, nice. So maybe we could start with some overall question. How many days are you doing of team racing a year?
Um, it's hard to say, but I think about like a third of all sailing practice I do is team racing.
And you're doing it with the same team always?
Um, For the most part, yeah, but sometimes it switches up a bit. But for the most part, it's with that Team Happy.
Nice. And what do you like most about team racing?
I really enjoy that. It's a lot more like fast paced and a lot more are happening at once. Whereas fleet racing is just a bit slower and there's not like it's just faster and more like thrilling in a way.
Yeah, yeah, it's more fast paced. Do you think it needs any different skills compared to fleet racing?
Um, I think your technique and just your overall boat speed has a lot more effect in team racing just because you're doing just so many maneuvers that like in doing all of them you end up messing up and you can make a big difference there.
Nice. Maybe you could tell us a bit about what was your last team racing regatta? Marco Rizzotti last year?
Our last team race regatta was the qualifier for Marco Rizzotti here in the US. It was in St. Petersburg, Florida.
And with what team were you sailing with?
Just with Happy and his team, a few more kids from the US, and it was pretty good. We had good conditions.
Nice, nice. What's your expectations now in Rizzotti Trophy? Is it
Uh,
a, sorry, is it
I
a prep for the Worlds?
Pardon?
Is it a prep for the Worlds?
Yeah, I mean, just any team racing practice is gonna just help our team and just help me in my performance at the Worlds. But I would really like to be able to win Rizzotti again this year. That'd be amazing.
So three-peat, no?
Hopefully.
And we also have Happy here. Hi, Happy. Thanks for joining us. Could you
No,
maybe
thanks for the invitation.
could you maybe give us your opinion on what's different between team racing and fleet racing for the kids?
Well, I think that in general, all young sailors, all kids really love team racing even more than fleet racing itself. So it's a very good tool for teaching kids because they are having a lot of fun. If they are already having fun normally by fleet racing, when you add the team racing component, they normally tend to like it a lot more. So it's a very good tool, I will say, for coaches to use it for because it's a lot of skills that they can also take with them for fleet racing, no?
And
So very useful tool for sure for teaching.
and can you practice the same skills or are they different, the skills practiced?
I mean, in a lot of them they are related, but like Pablo says, this is more um, high paced. But at the same time, I think that the fundamentals are are pretty similar. No, you want to be as fast as you can in both in fleet racing and in team racing. If you have an edge in boat speed, you are one step ahead. Um, Definitely in team racing, having an edge in boat handling pays off. In fleet racing, definitely helps, but is you can get away sometimes in the optimist. It's not a class that has also a super complicated boat handling compared to other classes. So definitely in team racing, you need that to be on point and to have to make it consistent under pressure. And then the other thing is the situational awareness, no? In team racing at all times, you are moving in relation of how your other teammates are going, no? And that is changing all the time, whether they are executing well or whether the other team is executing well. So that awareness to know at one moment to sail to the front and let's say stop team racing and focus more on boat speed and try to escape forward, or when is the moment to attack to the back and try to convert to a 7 and 8. That is what really makes a difference, no? In between a guy that just knows how to do one-on-one situations, knows how to do well mark traps, knows how to do well the XA, the match racing part of team racing, but to understand, to read in general the overall positions of the team, to try to keep it as simple as possible and to try to, in a way, finalize a race as soon as possible. No, ideally way before the last, way before Mark 3. No, for the downwind already be securing a winning position, stable in front. That is basically the last 2-3 legs you are sailing them basically with a 1-2-3 already converted. No.
Yeah, so as you're saying, it's very dynamic, no? The whole team racing and very changing constant.
Definitely,
So
yes, 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 yes. Very short races as well. The races are normally between 7 and 8 minutes, different from the 45, 50 minutes they are sailing in fleet racing. So definitely, the kids enjoy it a lot. They really enjoy it a lot.
yeah, I remember from my days, it was the most fun part of protesting and everything. And I remember also from my days that we used to sail with the roles on the team. Is that the case? Do you still use roles when you're racing? And what is Pablo's role? Maybe you could answer, Pablo.
Um, well, depending on whatever team we're sailing against, we try to have a different strategy depending on the other team's strengths and weaknesses. But I don't really have a like set role. It's always changing depending on what's important in that race.
Okay, so you don't have fixed positions, but as you're saying, you're also adapting not only to the race itself, but to the other teams.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's very interesting. And what do you want from your coach in team racing? What do you need him to help you with, in like either in training or in racing?
Um, well, I think that like the fun coaching of team racing is just really understanding where the important part of the race is and knowing what you have to do and when. And I think that as long as you have that understanding pretty well and your coach gives you or teaches you the right technique and bow speed, that's enough to be a pretty good team racer.
Okay, okay, so he just gives you the tools to be able to execute yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, I think Ton has a question now he wanted to ask.
Yes, but first, I just want to repeat that please ask your questions in the chat. We have no questions so far, so fire away. But today I can see that we have a lot of coaches here, and I think there are many ways to teach team racing. So I'm just curious, Fernando, like if you have a team racing training, how do you structure a training, a typical training? Like how much is theory, how much is on the water, how much do you spend on rules, etc.
Uh, I think it really depends at what level. I mean, first of all, how many, if you're going to dedicate the whole day to team racing, or whether you're just gonna use it as part of a full training day. But I think that first of all, for to execute a good team racing and for them to understand, um, what are, because the first thing you have to do as a coach is to assess the team. No, what do I have? Do I have fast sailors but not very experienced? Do I have experienced sailors but maybe uh, not that very fast? Um, so I think when you assess the team in general, then you can have an overall plan on what are the areas to work on. No, um, I think that a normal session will be starts with theory and briefing earlier in the day, where you are doing the knowledge base, where you are doing everything related to theory and what are the objectives of the day. And then to go on the water and execute different drills, putting the sailors really in different scenarios, whether it's in Mark 1, whether it's Mark 2, where it's defending certain positions on the downwind, different mark traps at different marks. And then after that, of course, you finish with some races, depending on if you are able to have 8 sailors to at least have 2 teams. If not, you just do with what you have, 2-on-2 or 3-on-2. Or you just join with another team if you are on the days before the Worlds and maybe practice with some of them that would be beneficial for both. And then at the end of these drills and these races are video recorded, so you end up the day with a debrief where you are really analyzing with the sailors now in detail and rewinding and in the slow motion all the different situations that happen, all the different calls. And that's where really the good conversations happen on how to, in that situation happens, and then how will you treat it, no? Similarly, differently, how was the attack, how was the defense, and so on, no? So definitely video is a must for analyzing team racing and be able to teach the sailors a little bit in detail the plays that you need them to execute, no?
Got it. Thanks for that, Fernando. This topic is so complicated, so sometimes we will have to just give a simple reply in order to keep up with the time. But today, actually, we have a guest with us. Three-time world champion Marco Gradoni is here in the chat, and he has a question for you, Fernando. So, Marco, please turn on your mic and video and ask your question. Marco, if you're here, please let us know. Otherwise, we'll bring you in later.
Ton, I think he might have just accidentally left. I saw it flick up in the box, probably pushed the wrong button, but he'll be back.
Okay. All right. Got it. All right. So let's move on with the normal questions, Pablo.
Yeah. I have another one for Pablo. You're one of the best fleet sailors out there. How do you think, what are like your strengths in fleet racing? And what do you think you bring to the table in your team racing after?
I think in fleet racing, my tactics in relation to the boats around me are pretty good. And I think mainly that's because of all the team racing work I've done, positioning myself in relation to other boats. But I'd say, obviously, my boat speed has to be relatively good to be able to keep up with everyone else. But I think my tactics are pretty good.
And do you think you brought that from team racing to fleet racing or other opposite way?
I think just doing so much team racing throughout all the years I've sailed and just like learning where you're positioned within the other boats, what are the possibilities and what can happen, has really helped me in fleet racing.
And asking the opposite question, what do you think you're bringing from fleet to team racing, your speed?
Yeah, probably my speed, yeah. And just like my maneuvers and tacks.
Nice. So really good boat handling, you're saying?
Yeah.
Nice. And what do you find the most interesting or the most fun part of team racing? What do you enjoy the most?
I just really enjoy how there's so many different things that can happen and you never really know like what's gonna happen until the end. And there's just a lot of things you have to focus and be aware of.
Okay, so the awareness, you're saying, yeah, it's very important.
It's really like complex and I just enjoy that.
Yeah, you have to be like constantly counting points also, and the magic, how much was it? 18 points, that was the number. That's the tying number, no? How
Yeah.
exactly? But yeah, it was constantly adding the points and seeing where your teammates. It was very dynamic, and you have to be like very aware all the time.
Yeah.
And I think Ton wanted to ask something also.
Yes, so we have Fernando here today, and I think we can all agree that Fernando is probably the best Optimist coach in history. But the coach is also, evaluated through his sailors. So I just want to hear from you, Pablo, like in your own words, like what makes Happy such a good coach? Why is he the best, in your opinion?
He just, I mean, I've sailed with a lot of coaches, but I think where Fernando really, or where Happy really stands out is just the way that he's able to explain things and get the sailors to truly understand them and just get to know what he's saying. I think he does a really good job of conveying that information.
All right, and Uh, you are still doing some club sailing, I guess. Can you explain a little bit how you divide your attention and your focus when you're with Fernando and when you're at home?
Um, well, I haven't sailed with a club in a while, but when I used to, it was really just um it was just like trying to, well, they had different schedules, so they never really interfered. So it was just giving my 100% at each practice, no matter who I was with.
Got it. But also meant in terms of what you practice. Was there any difference, or did you practice everything everywhere?
Um, we practiced. I mean, they practiced pretty similar things, just kind of a general version of sailing, fleet racing, and team racing. But with Fernando, we do a lot more, or with Happy, we do a lot more drills, whereas with my club, we just did a lot of races.
Got it. Pablo, do you have some questions?
Yeah, we could maybe move on to the Worlds this summer. It's in Slovenia. You can maybe tell us a bit about your prep towards the Worlds, both in fleet and in team racing.
Um, well, it's a pretty complicated venue, so I think just the most time on the water I can get, the better to familiarize myself with the place. And I think I'm gonna have a lot of focus on fleet racing and most of the team racing practice the World's team is doing here in Miami. And once we get there, we're gonna mainly focus on fleet racing and getting to know the conditions.
Okay, so you're gonna use the time at home now to train team racing, and once you go there, fleet racing?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a question now from Luis. He asked if we could ask it, and he's what are the drills that you can practice and repeat the most?
Who are we asking?
Who wants to answer, Pablo? Maybe Pablo could answer and give his opinion as a sailor, what makes him less bored.
I really like the surprise rabbits we do, because again, it's just there's so many things you need to be aware of, and it's also just a really complex drill that's always changing.
Fernando, do you have any? What are your favorite drill? Like, what are the drills that you can practice and repeat the most? They're asking.
Well, I think for team racing, that is the main topic. I will just focus on the fundamentals. I think that's the most important thing. One on one, at the end, you have four against four. So if you divide the race, let's say it's like four different match racing happening, no? So I think managing the fundamentals when you have a race course and just normal tacking duel, one kit on top of the other, and then invert the positions, and see if the guy behind could really end up passing the guy in front on a one-on-one. Same on the downwind, no? One-on-one with no separation, the bow of the other sailor on the rudder, and just defend the position being in front and arrive to the next mark, clear ahead or with mark room or the opposite, you are behind right on the radar on the other person and create the attack that you at the end are able to pass him and arrive to the next mark with room. So I think having those fundamentals one-on-ones well executed in both positions, whether in front or whether behind, is something that is super basic, but at the same time is something that at the end I think is the most important to master all the fundamentals correctly.
Yeah, and I think what you said is linked to the question that Marco Guardoni asked earlier. He couldn't ask it himself, but his question is, do you believe it's stronger to do zone start or man one-on-one? And I guess it could be both, but it would be interesting to hear your take, how you think about a race.
I think it really depends on the team. Like Pablo said, we work a lot depending on the team that we are going. Normally, you get to know the teams that you are sailing with, at least a little bit, at least the strong ones for sure. And based on that, you will decide on one or the other, and also the same as the sailors that you are having, no? Because a lot of the times you are the stronger team than the other one, so or the opposite. Sometimes you have a weaker team than the other ones on a one-on-one basis. So I think that decides a lot what approach you're going to have on the pre-start and in general on the start. But at the same time, you can have a plan and the other team also have a plan. So hopefully your plan can be implemented above the other team plan. But if the other team is good, like normally it happens in the Worlds, like all the team on the last day, on the last 16s are pretty good and anybody can beat you pretty easily, even though you could arrive as a strong candidate, as one of the favorites. But when you are in those last 16s on the Worlds, any team can really beat you. So the level of concentration, the level of precise execution needs to be on point for 7-8 minutes that last the race. So I think really depends whether to use a zone start or a man-on-man. I really use both. Sailors need to use both, and then most important, they need to be able to adapt one to the other. No, if all of a sudden the opportunity for zone start appears clearly because also of a wind shift, also because area of the start line is emptier and it in a way could pay off. Having that awareness to leave the man-on-man and all of a sudden convert like a fleet race start and already have from the beginning a 1-2 or even a 1-2-3 at the pin when it was left face or for whatever fleet racing concept the pin became favored and surely the plan was initially man-on-man and from there evaluate and we saw it at the right moment with 30-40 seconds to go and we prioritize the fleet racing concept and all of a sudden you are leading a race from just having that awareness on that start line, no? And one thing to view to the other just from being aware of the fleet racing concept. No, a lot of the times the team racing, as you know, has a similar approach. The race course has much racing, not try to do it close to shore, in shifty conditions, in offshore breezes where you have a lot of changes on the wind, which makes it in a way easier to catch up if you're behind and easier also to lose out if you're in front. No, it creates a lot more situations. So if the team is sharp to read those situations while you're on the sequence, I think that you can make the race a lot easier without much team racing involved from the beginning, no?
Yeah, got it.
So you need to adapt while you're on the sequence. You have to be adapting and reading what's happening and whether to stay with a one-on-one approach or whether to change at some moment and really take the opportunity of that particular fleet racing concept, no?
It sounds like you're really wanting to teach this instinct, this team racing instinct to the sailors so that they know what to do all the time. But another part of team racing is also the rules. And Pablo, I'm wondering, because in fleet racing, most sailors, they're not maybe practicing the rules that much. They are taught a few basic rules and then it's mostly about execution. But in team racing, it could be beneficial to know some extra rules. Do you study rules yourself at home or extra when it's time for team racing?
I think that I mean, the rules obviously apply a lot more in team racing, but I don't think you have to go crazy and study the whole rule book. As long as you know the basic rules 10 through 18, I think you'll be fine for team racing for the most part. But it is important to have them clear and understand what the rules are and how they apply.
Interesting. And let's ask Fernando as well. Do you agree? Is this your philosophy as well?
Yeah, I think overall, like from like Pablo is saying, from 10 to 19, the sailors need to know it by heart, no, even like the at least the main definition, no, call it port starboard, windward, leeward, clear ahead, clear astern. I think that those 10 to 19 is by heart that you need to know them, and then comes the execution, no, then comes the execution of knowing where they really apply, how they really changing. Um, but I think that it's a very good way to teach the sailors rules applications of attack and defense, and each attack has a defense, and each defense has a counter attack. So it's like playing chess, basically, no? Where at the end, it's not that there is much secrets on it. There is a lot of teams that know very much the same concepts. Let's say if you give them a written exam, they will answer correctly, all of them. But when it comes to the execution, the timing, the time and distance to create a mark trap, when to um, stop doing it, and so on, is where really comes the difference in the teams, no? So yes, I think that knowing the rules from sure from 10 to 19 is it's a must, and then after that, of course, the applications of them, no, the applications of them that in each leg there is a different way to that the rules could be applied, no. So the sailors learn very good with team racing, these match racing situations that are one-on-one, both on both tactics using the rules. No, so it's quite for them quite a very good way to learn it. For them, they can take those skills as well for fleet racing. No.
Fernando, do you have any suggestions for sailors not in your team of resources where they can learn more about team racing that's public?
Well, I think go to team racing regattas. No, normally we are attending 4 or 5 team racing regattas per year. We have well, next weekend, like Pablo said, we have the team racing nationals in the US, and the following weekend we have the Marco Rizzotti, which is like a world championship of team racing that they have. It's a 37th edition. They have a lot of tradition in Italy with team racing, and a lot of teams use it as preparation for the worlds. So you see there the registered teams. There are many top teams, including the of course the Italian team that is always strong, the Spanish team that is the current world champion, and then you have strong teams like Puerto Rico, Slovenia, Croatia, of course a few teams from the US that they come by team or by clubs, which are always strong. So I think there is a very good lineup of very interesting teams there that could be potential candidates for worlds. No.
Yeah, it's
So
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
there are a lot of team racing regattas happening in Europe as well. You have the one in Berlin in November, and then there is a few others in GAR that are coming out lately. So first of all is to try to do more team racing regattas. No, I think that by club by countries also the countries have different team racing calendar. In the US, we do normally 2 regattas, one in January and one in summer. But other than that, I think it's good for the sailors to know because they really like it. I think that the aspect of fun that they really enjoy, and if you could have a really long training day and you could go back home and they still ask you if they can do one more a little longer for team racing, no? So the fact that they really enjoy being there, it's something that you can use that method of training to teach other things, no? It's a very good tool to use.
Yeah, and we had other interviewees here before, and they all emphasize the importance of actually going to regattas and practice a lot. So, Pablo, I'm curious, how many team racing regattas do you go to in a season, like a regular season, in order to keep up with the high level of sailing that you have?
Like Happy said, we do around 4 to 5 a year, and a few of them are in the U.S. We have two in the U.S., the one in Rizzotti in Venice, and normally I have whichever IOTA I qualify myself for. So whether it be North Americans or Worlds, we also do team racing there.
All right. Pablo, can you take over?
Yeah, sure. I have a question I've been waiting a bit for Pablo. Happy's told a lot about this instinct of knowing like when to change from like match racing or team racing tactics to fleet racing when the opportunity comes. How do you manage that as a team? Is there a leading voice, or does each sailor like just feel the moment? Because I feel there could be like certain situations when there's like a gap between the team.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, if you and our team, we try to not really communicate and say things aloud too much, so we all understand like under what conditions what we need to do. So there isn't really a leading voice that tells everyone what to do, but obviously, sometimes we communicate to try clarify things, but mainly it's just everyone's understanding what to do by themselves.
Okay, so it relies on you all training together and knowing each other and like the playbook you're racing with, right? So you were speaking that it cut out?
No, yeah, I mean, pretty much it's just racing together and getting to know each other, and then we just are on the same page and are often doing or working together in the same way.
Okay. That makes lots of sense. And we have more questions coming in now. Luis is asking for you, Pablo. How would you describe a hard training day regarding fleet race and team race? Like, what would be the differences for you?
Um, I mean, they what defines a hard day isn't. I mean, it's just really about the quality of your training on the water. So you don't necessarily have to be on the water for a long time. You just need to really like take advantage of the time you have. And I think the hard days are just the ones where we're training nonstop and really taking advantage of the time we have on the water and on land.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That using all the time you can and really like pushing the time that the day has to really improve. And if anybody else like has any questions, we could you can ask them in the chat. We have a few more that came by email to us. One sec, I'll reach them. They asked like how many, like this is more general but still interesting, like how many days are you training a week right now?
Um, it really depends because there's some weeks that I don't train, and then there's some weeks that I train every day. Um, but it really just depends on the week.
Okay, so you're like training like depending on season or regattas or stuff like that.
Yeah, it depends on the trips because obviously when we go to Venice or Slovenia or anything, we just train every day to make the most of that trip, no matter how long it is. And when I'm home, it's really when I relax, but I often practice a little bit on the weekends.
Okay, and they were also asking what do you recommend for kids that are starting now and want to achieve great results in either team racing or fleet racing?
Um, I think just the obviously the best way to get to improve is just gain the most experience as you can as fast as possible. So spend time on the water, go to a lot of regattas. And I think another really important thing is the theory that you're understanding on land about sailing. So just trying to understand the sport in general and just the ways it applies.
Okay. Okay. And I have another question for you. Has your approach to team racing changed over the years as you've grown older and more experienced?
Um, yeah, when I first started out and I didn't really know too much about the rules or what to do, I tended to just try and sail fast and be in front and not do too much team racing. Whereas now, I obviously try to be in front in every race, but I'm a lot more confident in my ability to slow the race down and take some people out.
Okay, so you as you learned more the rules,
I
and
more team racing within the races.
yeah, yeah, and we have a few more
Can I
questions.
cut in, Pablo, quickly? I think that this question is really interesting, and I would like to hear, Fernando, what you have learned over the years, because you've been in the game for so long, and I assume that when you were a young coach, you had a different view of sailing, especially team racing, than from what you have now. Can you give some examples of something that changed or that you learned and you're teaching differently nowadays?
Um, I think in general that I will say the calmness that the sailors at the end need to have, because team racing at the same time, because it high paced, there is a lot of emotion involved. There is a lot of situations that sometimes are not judged the way you want them to be judged, because maybe the jury didn't see it, or because maybe he doesn't believe or he didn't see what you saw. And that happens very often, more often than not happening, that you are not happy with a call or that you are not happy with a situation. And to manage that frustration, to teach the sailors how to manage that frustration, and keep and do not depend on a call of the jury for actually winning a race, and to be able to teach them that calmness needed, is something that definitely, more on the mental side, I will say, that has improved or has been implemented during the years, no? Because I think on the technical side and on the combinations, the team racing is pretty much the same for the since I know it, no, because it has always been 4-on-4. So since the combination of the 1, 2, 7, and 8 was losing, basically, I think that the difference now is that more teams are good. In the past, there was 1 or 2 teams that were good and they were always dominant, and it was a lot easier to be consistent in front, no, at World Championship, for example. So I think that nowadays you have at least at Worlds 10, 12 teams that are really, really strong and that anyone could medal. So that makes it a lot harder, and also being strong mentally and being able to have that calmness when needed, I think is something that is as important to teach to the sailors as any other mark trap, any other um, situation of attack or defense skill that you might teach them, no? Because at the end, those emotions and those moments of frustrations happen very often in team racing, and at the end they dictate a lot what's going to happen with the race, no? So I think that's something that for sure throughout the years uh, has helped me improve the way that I'm coaching the sailors, no? Yeah.
Yeah,
Can I
so
can I
uh,
follow that question? Just follow that question up. I find this part really fascinating, Fernando. So, yeah, no, just thinking, how do you get that empathy with the sailors? So, have you learned any tricks? Like, clearly, you must have a very good understanding of their mind and their strengths and weaknesses emotionally. Um, do you consciously tune in? How do you sort of go about the process of learning a sailor and figuring out what they need emotionally? and how to bring out the best in them.
Yes, well, I think that is the ultimate goal or the ultimate skill that the coach should try to develop, no? Because at the end, of course, our job, apart from teaching the science of sailing, at the other side of the sport is actually to bring the best of the sailors when it matters. That normally is once a year, no, in the target event of the year, and to make sure that in that particular moment the sailor is able to be at its very best, and that for sure requires um, a lot of work around, because obviously the sailor needs to have a lot of understanding of what makes them perform, no? And I think that during training, what we try to do is we try to simulate as much as we can real racing scenarios with particular drills that we know are the most common to happen. So always trying to keep already our complex sport as simple as possible, and to try to really prepare specifically for the two, three or main scenarios that might happen in that particular venue. So when they happen, the sailors are able to recognize them. And if you keep accounting training of when they are executing this properly, and then they get to know that they are doing it correctly, that brings up their confidence, no? So I think it's important that they understand that when it's time to go to the worlds, that they have been through training that has been either way more intense or either way more harder than drills itself, and that the training partners have always been the best possible ones, not trying to create the best possible environment around the sailor. So they are at all times in training being demanded by very strong training partners, by very difficult, complicated drills that are advanced, and that there is a certain standard in the team and in the group that is required, that is the standard that we all work for. And that's a wheel that keeps rolling. No, they are with good training partners in complicated drills that actually recreate sailing scenarios. They execute correctly. They can see themselves doing it on the videos. That brings up their confidence when they are on the start line in a real race. It's a lot easier, no? The sailor that is next to you is not is not that the guy that is your training partner, which is among the best ones in the world, is a little easier, and then that drill that you did 100 times was way more complicated, and you did it on point. So now this happens at a much slow pace, no? So I think when the sailors realize that what they've done in their preparation, they arrive to the events with confidence and calm and tuned in and enjoying it, which is at the end the whole thing, no? That they really enjoy the the fact of preparing and the fact of going to the main event and executing what they have prepared. And during the regatta, it's all about, I think, of course, enjoying the event, no, and being able to really give your best, which is totally different of how your preparation is going, no? Your preparation, you do it with a lot more, I will say, intensity, no? With a lot more, you're preparing for war, let's say. But once you are at war, you're at peace, and you have done the job, and whatever the outcome is, it is what it is. You prepare the best that you could, and you need to have that calmness and that readiness to accept whatever outcome it is, as long as you are giving your best, no? And I think that is the area where the sailors really need to really make a difference, no? In understanding that if everything goes good, you deserve to a good result, fantastic, you got it. But a lot of people work really well as well, and sometimes it's not your regatta, and nothing happens if if the result doesn't go, especially in optimism, no? Especially in optimism, that is just something that it's starting. So it's important to give the sailors always perspective of that, no? And the most difficult thing is to give guidance to the sailors that are being successful in optimism at a young age, no? Because it could also be very unproductive and beneficial for a 14 or 15-year-old to enjoy success, world success, at such an early age without proper guidance. So it's a fine point that we coaches have the responsibility to guide our sailors and to tell them, hey, good to good in optimism, but really this is just the beginning, no? Try to see what you're gonna do after in youth classes, know what's happening in Olympic classes, know what are the trends, and at least in my team, that's where we aim for, and that's where the sailors at least have their eyes on. Whether it happens or not, there is many things along the way in a sailor's path, but at least their sights are clear where that optimism is just the beginning, and of course the results they have is because they enjoy a lot. I think that's a secret that they enjoy a lot training. I enjoy a lot training, and that's how we can give our best, no, by enjoying what we do. And yeah, always a good result in optimism is a bonus, but it's just a beginning. That has to be the most important thing that they have always need to have in the back of their mind. No, it's just a beginning. Whatever happens after is more important. And I think with every optimist coach will understand that it will be a much better life for our athletes. No, I think it's
Yeah,
important to.
beautifully put. I mean, I thought everything you said was so special and spot on. Thanks for sharing that. I was thinking, what about your shift from training to the actual regatta? So you now, you've done, like you say, all the hard work, and you've got them feeling quite confident with their skills, and now you're kind of in the spotlight for them. They've got to perform. They're going out to race their first race. And what sort of things are you helping them with? Are you tuned into their emotions? You can see when they're a little bit too tense, and you can help them relax a little bit. Do you rely on process routines to relax them so that they know what they're going to be doing when they get up, and they know the process and the routine they're going to use? What's your tricks there to sort of keep them in the moment and keep them not overheating in terms of being cooked in their mind during the actual racing part, the switching off, for example, or whatever?
Yeah. Yes, definitely having a clear daily routine is of utmost importance because that in a way maintains the in a way that consistency in what you are doing. So a normal day during when we switch to that, the thing is that the main philosophy is that during training we really have intensity. We really have make them to be out of their comfort zone. We push hard in fitness. We have volume of training. But of course, when you are already in the last weeks of the last week prior to a main event, of course, the volume of training on water switches a lot. Of course, the specific things that you are working is more about venue recognition, about trying to understand the new venue, the new patterns, and fine tuning the last things of boat speed. But most of the skills have been done training with very, very chosen sparring partners or either other teams that you want to join. Uh, because the people in Optimis learn very quickly as well. So if you want to have an advantage as well, you have to be very careful with who you're training. No, same as you in Olympic classes, exactly the same thing happens. That people are very, very careful with who they train because the people are super sharp. All the trainers are really good, and at the end, you want to have that advantage when the start line is happening. No, so I think having in a way a little bit of a good thought. With who you are sharing the previous days, because obviously a lot of people also want to share with the people who are leading, no? So having balanced that is something that I think is important for the coaches to know. But for the sailors, I will say that we keep it quite simple. A briefing in the morning with weather, what's expected, going on the water no more than 2 hours to venue recognition and fine tune a few skills. Then afternoon off where they can relax and stay. Well, Porto Ross this year is gonna be super warm, so try to stay indoor and refreshing, and at the same time doing certain activities that could be fun for them. and then a debrief in the evening with some videos, with some discussions of the day, and always with certain mental training. No, mental training for sure is something super important, where they are visualizing basically the scenarios that are most likely going to happen. No, so that's one of the things that we clearly add on the previous days, because we are already spending time with the sailors on site, no, on the venue. So it's one of the tools that we use for sure to try to have them execute better the possible patterns, the possible scenarios that they might find while racing. No.
Beautiful. Yeah, no, that's really really insightful. Thanks very much. And I really thought Pablo said something quite special too. You know, that you're that you can. I mean, I think learning is understanding what you already know, and I think what you're obviously really good at is really bringing a deep level of understanding into what you do, into the whole Opti thing. So that comes oozing out from your sailors. So I think that really stands out for me, and I think that it's really ironical that everybody calls you happy, because if you want sailors to get somewhere and stay in the game, they've got to be in doing it, and enjoying every moment. I mean, obviously not every moment, but the whole thing it falls back on that thing. So just brilliant that you called that as well, and really enjoyed listening to you. Thanks a million.
Thank you.
Bye for you.
All right, we have a few more questions in the chat. We have Dimitris. You have a related question to this topic. Please fire away. Dimitris, please turn on your camera and ask your question. All right. We will move on for now and get back to this question if Dimitris comes back. We have a question from Poland, 3800. Please ask your question. Poland, 3800. Oh, okay. We have two broken mics, so I will ask the question. So the first one is, like, let's ask Pablo first. When you have a bad race, what do you do to get over your feelings and recharge for the next one?
Well, I just try to analyze like where in the race I messed up and what parts of the race are what made it a bad race. And then I mentally know that there's nothing I can do about it anymore now that the race is over. So there's no point in being upset or being emotionally attached to that race that already ended.
I have
Got
a
it. Yeah.
I have a following up question regarding this. Like maybe in fleet racing it's easier because it's just you and your boat and you're like, let's say, more controllable. But how do you do when it's team racing and maybe you have to deal with other team members? How do you deal with a bad race when you have your teammates also?
I mean, it's really the same process. We just get together and just analyze the race and what parts were good, what parts were bad, what could we have done better, and then just move on from it onto the next race.
Okay, very, very smart, very smart. And now we have the next question. And they were saying, how do you prepare for a pin and start?
Well, first I get the pin and lay line, so I know that I can't just drift below it because I won't make the pin. And then from there, I'm just looking at the fleet tendency to see what options I have on where I can approach that pin and point above the lay line from. And maybe sometimes the fleet's pushing the line too much and it's better to be a bit more conservative and start more in the middle. Or sometimes the fleet's pretty far behind and you can just roll over and start on top of the fleet. It just depends on what the fleet's doing, the conditions, and you have.
Okay, okay. Hope that's a good answer for Poland. And I have a closing question for each of you. First for you, Pablo, what's your best memory regarding team racing?
My best memory regarding team racing was probably the first Rizzotti we ever won. We had one race before the finals in the round robin against, I think it was like Hungary, and we were losing pretty bad. They were 2-3-4, and on Mark 4, I was just able to turn the race around and save my team and get us that spot into the finals.
Nice, good memory to remember then. And for you, Fernando, I have a question regarding a bit of prep. Do you do team building exercises with your sailors also, so they become more of a team, especially if it's like a team that's just like national team and are not a lot of time together, or maybe don't even know each other?
Well, I think that more than I try to do as much training as I can with the team, and in that moment I do the team bonding. No, in the moment that you are having the sailor for 6 to 8 hours a day by sharing lunch or sharing dinner or doing activities after, for sure, that are even for leisure. That's where you do that team bonding. But it's not that I will have, let's say, do 3 days of just leisure and let's get to know each other. No, I will always combine it with some training involved, and maybe in that training session you can put 1 hour of leisure plus the dinner, plus there are certain things you do all together. So that's the way that you bond the team, no? That's the way that you bond the team. And especially that's not difficult, because when you put clear goals and hey, this is where we are aiming, this is where we are at, and everybody buys into that goal, then I think that team bonds by itself very quickly, no?
Oh, hard work is the best way to bond the sailors, no?
I would think so, yes, I think so, especially because when it's national teams, you have not as much time as, let's say, I have with a private team, with Pablo and the other US sailors. Um, where of course we do team dinners when we are away, when we spend a lot of time together, so it's like a little family, no? A lot of time with national teams, you have X amount of days per before the world championship, and you have to get the best out of it, and of course your priority has to be on water training, and then in between bond the team, no?
Yeah, of course, of course. Well, I think it's time to wrap up. Thanks to both of you for connecting and giving us your time. We've had a very great insights and lots of learning. So thanks to Pablo and thanks to Fernando for this hour.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.